A very good afternoon to all pious yogis. This I shall give a brief instructions on the practice of Satipatthana, Vipassana Bhavana. There are quite many experienced yogis joining these retreats. You might have the knowledge of the practice of mindfulness meditation. Some might not have a clear knowledge. So this meditation is known as Satipatthana Vipassana Bhavana. Satipatthana refers to the practice of the four foundations of mindfulness, or the four establishments of mindfulness. Vipassana consists of two words, vi and passana. Passana means realization or right understanding of true natures of mental and physical phenomena through personal experience or direct experience. Vi refers to various characteristics, but here vi refers mainly to three common characteristics of mental and physical phenomena. The three common characteristics are anicca or impermanence, dukkha unsatisfactories, anatta no self. So vipassana means also means wisdom, so panya. Panya, realizations of the three common characteristics of mental and physical phenomena, three common characteristics of mental and physical phenomena through personal experience. So this is known as panya. And this panya is conducive to the realizations of the four note truth and uproots the mental defilements. Bhavana is translated as meditation. The true sense of bhavana is mental training or mental culture or mental developments. So we are developing or cultivating wisdoms by the practice of Satipatthana or mindfulness in brief. Usually the four foundations of mindfulness is known as mindfulness meditation in brief. Mindfulness sometimes also known as awareness. Sometimes we also use other words to explain mindfulness. As you know, mindfulness is translated from the word sati in Pali. So sometimes we have to use different words to explain the meaning of sati. To observe or to watch or to be mindful of whatever objects or phenomenon that's arising in the mind or the body at that present moment. So in other words, mindfulness means the attention of the mind. The attention of the mind at this present moment. Or in other words, the mindfulness is also translated as present moment's attention. When you are paying attention to an object or phenomenon or any feelings or sensation that's arising at that moment as it really occurs, you are in fact developing mindfulness or practicing satipatthana. So there are many different objects or variety of phenomena that are arising in your mind and body from one moment to next moment. There are various mental states such as thinking, planning, memory, and sometimes certain memory give rise to other mental states. For example, anger, disappointment, frustration, and so on. So there are many different mental states. It's known as nama or mental phenomena. Then there are various physical phenomena. But in the practice mindfulness meditation, physical phenomena or rupa refers to the four primary material elements. The four primary material elements are the earth element, fire element, wind element, and water elements. So these four elements consist of rupa. So what we meant here is the nature or the characteristics of the elements. For example, when you experience a hardness arising in your body, then you have to pay attention to it. In other words, you're mindful and note it as it really occurs. Hardness, or you may mindful and note it as hard. Then you are mindful of the earth elements. When you sometimes you perceive or experience coldness or hotness arising in the body, when you are mindful and note it as it really occurs, you are in fact mindful of the five elements. When you're mindful of the various movements, for example, movement of abdomens, or when you're mindful of movements of your walking, such as left and right, lifting, pushing, dropping, and so on. And when you are able to mindful of whatever movements that you are doing in your routine activities, for example, eating your breakfast, lunch, taking shower, and so on. In fact, mindful of the wind element. So in those we can experience the specific characteristics or the individual characteristics of these elements in our body. Then we also could realize there are common characteristics. In other words, all mental and physical phenomena have these three characteristics in common. They are anicca or impermanence, dukkha, unsatisfactory, anatta, no self. So we want to mindful of them. In other words, we want to experience their true nature as they really are. Only by experiencing the true natures of these mental and physical phenomena as they really are, then we could develop concentration and wisdoms gradually. So there are many phenomena. We have to begin with one of them. As long as our mindfulness and concentration are not strong enough, meditators might perceive 2-3 phenomena or 3 or 4 phenomena are arising or happening at the same moment. So we have to begin with one of them. And new meditators might be confused how to begin the practice of mindfulness. As they sit down to begin meditations, they may not know what to mindful and how to mindful and so on. So meditators have to begin with the object or phenomenon during sitting meditations. So I shall explain briefly about the practice of sitting meditations. But in fact, every sitting meditation should be begin with walking meditations. So meditators may sit in the postures, comfortable postures. The postures enable meditators to sit long. Meditators have to learn to keep their mind and body relaxed, and they have to put forth enough effort, mental effort into practice. But they should not force themselves too much, or force the mind to concentrate deeply into the objects or any phenomenon. It's better to increase the mental effort gradually, so that meditators will not experience much tension or pressures in the practice. So at the beginning of sitting meditation, meditators could not perceive any clear object or strong object or distinct objects. So in this tradition of practice, we begin the sitting meditation, either walking meditation or sitting meditation, mindfulness of daily duties, with these 4 primary material elements. But the 4 primary material elements are not manifesting at the same moment. As each moment, one of the primary material elements manifested clearly. 2 different material elements cannot manifest clearly at the same moment. Even in one element, for example, when meditators experience hot, at that moment they could not experience coldness. So they could not experience hot and cold at the same moment and at the same place. So at each moment, there's one material elements manifested clearly. So at the beginning of sitting meditation, meditators could not perceive any clear phenomena. Then they do not have to search for clear phenomenon. In this meditation, we do not have to search for the object or create a phenomenon, and we do not have to make an effort to make the phenomenon to become clearer or more distinct. What should be done is to develop the mindfulness, so that the mindfulness is getting more and more attentive, precise, energetic, so that meditators could realize every phenomenon clearly as it duly occurs. So meditators need not have to search for an object. They have to train the mind or guide the mind, direct the mind. The mind here means mindfulness or the attention of mind to an object in order to begin the sitting meditation. So this object phenomenon is the movement of abdomens. So this object that help meditators to begin the sitting meditation is known as mula kammatthana in Pali. Mula means the meaning mula is quite similar to the Malay words mula, to help the meditators to begin the sitting meditation. But it was translated as a primary object in certain books on the practice of Vipassana meditation, or sometimes it's also translated as the basic object of sitting meditation. But the word mula kammatthana, mula means an object or phenomenon, enable the meditators to begin the sitting meditation. Or whenever there's no other distinct object arising, meditators may come back to this object, rising, falling movements of abdomens. So these movement of abdomens is not the only objects of sitting meditation. It's only one of the varieties of the physical phenomena. It's not the most important object. So meditators should not cling to this object, thinking that this object is the most important object. Every object or phenomenon that's arising during mindfulness meditation is equally important. In other words, when meditators could mindful of any object attentively, precisely, energetically, then meditators might gain some experience of insights or even attaining enlightenment. But we do emphasize that mindful of the mental state that's arising at that present moment is more important than mindful of whatever physical phenomenon that's happening at that moment. It's because meditation is not mental training, mental culture, or mental developments. So whenever meditators are mindful of any physical object or body sensations, then they realize that there's a mental state arising, for example, thinking, or planning, or feeling sleepy. Then meditators must mindful of that mental state. For example, thinking, be mindful and note it until the thinking has disappeared by itself. Then meditators mindful of the next object. The next object could be the movement of abdomens, or sometimes the thinking had disappeared. In the next moment, there's a strong painful sensation arising. Then meditators should mindful and note the strong painful sensations. So meditators meditators need not have to stay with one object. When one object had disappeared, then the next object arising, this object could be a body object or sensation or mental state and so on. So this is very important. In the practice of mindfulness meditation, meditators do not have a single object of meditation. So at the beginning of sitting meditation, meditators might have to direct the attention mind to the movement of abdomens. This movement of abdomens is known as wind element in the belly. If you do read any, you do read the scriptures. The scriptures explains about 4 material elements, and the wind element consists of 6 types or 6 kinds of wind elements. And here, wind elements in the belly means movement of the abdomens. So sometimes some meditators might think that this movement of abdomens is not found in the teachings or the scriptures. But actually, this object movement of abdomens is referring to the wind element in the belly. So this wind element or the movement of abdomens is a natural phenomenon. It is a natural process. As long as we are still alive, we have breath, the abdomen will be moving by itself. That means the abdomen could be moving forward, or sometimes known as expansions of the abdomen. Then it moves inwards, or meditators perceive as contractions of the abdomen. So when there's forward movements, meditators might mindful and note it as a rising. When meditators perceive there's a inward movements, then they may mindful and note it's falling. So here, meditators have to take note mentally. As long as mindfulness and concentration are not strong enough, meditators might have to make mental noting or labelings. For example, when meditators perceive this move abdomens, then they mindful of it and take note mentally. In those mentally sit, rising, but they should keep the mindfulness with the process of movements. So when the process movements have disappeared, then there's a falling movements appear. In other words, the abdomen is moving inwards. The meditators may have to take note mentally falling. So this is known as mental noting or labeling, but it's not meditation. Mental labeling is not mindfulness meditation. Mental noting is a tool, or is a tool to help meditators to develop mindfulness, or to keep the mindfulness with the object. So meditators should not purposely control any process of the phenomena in order to know it precisely. So meditators must realize there's a movements, a process movements, or becoming aware there's a process movements. Then they can make the mental noting. But sometimes the process of movements is a short process. When meditators perceive a short process of rising, then the short process movements disappear. Then meditators should not make any mental noting. Meditators can make mental noting because the object has appeared and not yet disappear. So meditators can make mental noting. So meditators cannot make mental noting if the object has not yet arisen. Meditators, similarly, meditators can't make any mental noting if the object had disappeared. So meditators should rightly understand that meditators can make mental noting because an object has appeared and is in progress and not disappear. Then meditators might be able to make mental note. So movement of abdomen is known as a mula kamatana. So help meditators to begin the sitting meditation. During sitting meditation, meditators have to keep the breath normal, in other words, natural. They should not exercise control over the breath. They should not exercise control over the movements of the abdomen. They should let the movement of the abdomen arising or happening by itself. The duty or responsibility of mindfulness meditators is to mindful as it really occurs and make mental noting whenever it's possible. So meditators begin with the movement of abdomen. Sometimes meditators could not perceive the movement of abdomen clearly. Then they should not keep the mindfulness there. Sometimes the movement is not clear. It's difficult to perceive. The movement is so weak. So meditators need not have to force themselves to keep the mindfulness or the attention of the mind in the area of abdomen. Then they have an alternative. So at that moment, they may take sitting postures and contact the body as the alternative. Instead of mindful of the movement of abdomen, that was unclear, or sometimes it seems that there's no movements at all. The meditators should take sitting postures and contact bodies as an alternative. So meditators mindful of the sitting postures. So here sitting postures is defined as the upper part of the body remains erect or upright, and the lower part of the body, in other words, your both legs could be folded, sitting in the cross-legged, or some meditators may choose to place both legs evenly on the cushions or on the floor. But when meditators are mindful of sitting postures, they should pay attention to the upright postures. Be aware that one is sitting with the upright postures. But meditators should not visualize the postures, should not scan the postures. Meditators being bare awareness, merely bare attention that one is sitting with the upright postures. So meditators might take note, sitting. So in those meditators might mindful and note it twice, sitting. Then in the next movements, mindful one of the contacts of body. You may find many contacts in your postures. This contact is known as touching point in the practice. I shall give examples. So, if you place your hand above the knee, there's a contact there with your knee. The left hand touching the knee, the right hand touching the right knee. So these touching are quite clear to the mind. In other words, it's not difficult to perceive this touching of the hand with the knee. There are other touching points, for the touching of your shirt with the skin, or touching of your lips, or touching of the lower back with the cushions, or touching of the calf with the sitting cushion, and so on. So meditators may fix two touching points, for the touching of the hand with the knee, or some meditators place both hands, one hand on top each other's, then the other part of the hand touching the legs. So meditators have to fix two touching points. For example, I choose the touching the hand with the knee, so I pay attention to that touching of the left hand with the knee, and note it as touching. Then I pay attention to the touching of the right hand with the knee, touching. Then mindful sitting posture again, sitting. Then direct my mindfulness back to the touching point on the left, touching. So as long as the movement of movements is not clearly perceived, or sometimes the movement stops more than a moment, and there is no other distinct object arising, then meditators should be quick enough to direct the mindfulness to the sitting postures, then the first touching point, then the second touching point. So when meditators are mindful of the sitting postures, or one of the touching points, then there's a distinct object arising. For example, strong pain, the meditators are mindful and note pain. Or when meditators are mindful of sitting, then movement of abdomens appear clearly again. Then they mindful of the movement of the abdomens as it is. So whenever meditators could not perceive any strong object, they do not have to search for any clear object. They should quick enough to direct the attention mind to the movement of abdomens, or the sitting postures, or the touching points. Whenever meditators are mindful of one of the bodily object or a physical phenomenon, then there's a mental state arising, for example, thinking. The meditators should be mindful and note the thinking. It is important to mindful and note the thinking or any mental state until it has disappeared by itself. Then meditators be mindful of the next object. The next object could be a body phenomenon or a body sensation, whichever is more distinct. So it's important to mindful and note any mental state until it has disappeared by itself. In other words, whenever there's a mental state arising, meditators should not stop the mental states, or should not purposely cut off. For example, sometimes meditator realize this thinking is that he or she is not desire, and undesirable thinking arising. So sometimes some meditators purposely stop the thinking. If meditators stop the thinking purposely, then meditators are not practicing the way of mindfulness. When we're mindful of any object, either mental object or mental states, or physical object or body sensation. Our intention is to realize these mental states and physical phenomena as a natural process. This is important. We want to realize every process, either mental process. Mental process means, for example, thinking, planning, anger, frustration is a natural process. We also want to realize every physical phenomenon or body sensation, such as pain, numbness, as a natural process. It's because we want to realize that all these processes are arising and passing away by themselves. We can't exercise control over the arising of any object. We can't control over the passing away or disappearance of any objects or phenomena. So this is one of the characteristics of anatta. Similarly, when you keep on practicing correctly, you should also realize that the arising of mindfulness or awareness is a natural process. This is important. You think that you can exercise total control of your mindfulness, then you can't realize the true nature of mindfulness. Mindfulness is one of the mental states. It is also one of the mental processes which subjects to arising and passing away. But if meditators did not practice the way of mindfulness meditation, they can't see the process of mindfulness clearly. So I shall explain in another talk about this process of mindfulness. So at the beginning of sitting meditation, meditators might have to begin the sitting meditation with the movement of movements. But sometimes meditators sit down slowly, mindfully. Then maybe after closing the eyes, thinking has appeared. Then they should mindful not thinking. They should not direct the mind to the rising, falling. So they have to sit down slowly, mindfully, sitting down. When there's any contact of the body with the cushion, touching, and so on. So meditators have to practice patience, especially when they experience pain or any kinds of physical discomfort. If you are not yet accustomed to sitting meditation, you may experience pain, numb here and there. So you have to mindful note pain. You pay attention to the process of pain. You do not have to take note where does this pain arise. Or in other words, you do not have to take note the location of pain. The location of the pain or the sensation is not important. So meditators have to mindful note pain. Sometimes meditators are mindful of the pain. They realize there's a desire to move or to change the sitting postures. The meditators should mindful and note the desire. When desire has disappeared, then the meditators could keep the posture still. Then they can mindful the pain again, pain. Sometimes meditators mindful note pain, they realize that there's a tension arising, but a mental tension. Then they should mindful of the tension of mind, tension, and so on. So it's important to mindful of the mental reactions, such as the tension of mind, or desire to move or to change the sitting positions. If the intensity of pain is increasing and is unbearable, meditators may stop the sitting. Instead of moving or changing the sitting postures, meditators may choose to stop the sitting early and stand up with mindfulness, then may proceed to another session and proceed to walking meditations. So if any meditators can't sit for 1 hour on the first day, second day of the retreats, then they may practice more walking meditation. Walking meditation is quite helpful to the sitting meditation. You may walk up to 1 hour or slightly longer than 1 hour. So meditators need to practice patience or tolerance with physical discomfort, and sometimes with the restlessness of the mind or other hindrances such as sleepiness, sluggishness of the mind. So sometimes they might have to mindful note sleepy quite many times. They have to do it. As a mindfulness meditators, you have to face with it when you encounter any mental hindrances. In fact, mindfulness is manifested as a mental state, turning towards the object. When you know that you are sleepy, we can say that the mindfulness or attention mind is with the object. When you know that you are sleepy, so at that time you should note sleepy. When you know there's a strong pain arising, we can at the time the attention mind has gone there. Then you should note pain, and so on. So that's why in the teaching of Abhidhamma, the Abhidhamma explained that mindfulness is manifested as a mental state turning towards the object or coming face to face with the object. And mindfulness also manifested as a mental state guarding the mind, protecting the mind from the attack of kilesa or mental defilements. If one has mindfulness, then it's difficult for the defilements to arise. Even any defilement does arise, if one has sharp mindfulness, one could overcome it instantly. So mindfulness is manifested as a mental state turning towards object, and it is also manifested as a mental state protecting or guarding the mind from the attack of a kilesa or defilements. So meditators need to be patient. At the beginning of practice, the mindfulness is not yet developed. So meditators have to put forth effort or to direct the mindfulness to the object. Or sometimes they have to put some mental effort to guide the mind to the object, to stay with the strongest object. And meditators should always give priority to the mental state that's arising during walking meditation, and sitting meditation. And if possible, they should also mindful of the mental state that's arising during the mindfulness of daily activities. Yeah. So every sitting meditation should be preceded by walking meditation. I believe you can see that all the walking paths are marked. So walking up and down. Um, During walking meditation, meditators also need to stay at the present moment. Um, be mindful of the movement of the foot as it duly occurs. So I shall do some demonstrations. During walking meditations, meditators, first of all, be mindful of standing postures. Usually, we suggest to meditators to lock their hands during walking. It means holding both hands together. You may place it in front of you, or hold the hands softly, or place it at the back, or hold the other arms. Why we instruct meditators to lock their hands? Um, the reason is to minimize unnecessary movements. But you feel discomfort, it's alright. You do not have to lock your hands. You do not lock your hands, then try to avoid swinging your arms during walking. Sometimes some meditators, while walking, consciously or unconsciously swimming the arms. Then it's become the distractions to the mindfulness. So usually we suggest to meditators to lock their hands during walking, and they should not walk with the eyes closed. Sometimes some meditators think that they could focus their attention better with the eyes closed. But the walking becomes unstable with the eyes closed. And also it's not natural and it's not practical. So it's better to walk with the eyes open. But they should not look too far nor too near. Meditators may look ahead about 5 or 6 feet or about 2 meters. But they should not focus the attention on the floor, or they should mindful of the walking. So first of all, meditators mindful of the standing postures and note it as standing, 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 standing. So they should not visualize the standing postures. They do not scan the postures. Sometimes meditators doing scanning by placing the mindfulness or attention on top. Then they move their attention, the mind, down to the feet. So this is known as scanning of the body or postures. But in mindfulness meditation, we do not do this scanning of the postures. What we want to realize is the nature support. Nature support is one of the characteristics of wind element. So meditators mindful and notes standing, 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 standing. Meditators may mindful and note it a few times, about 5 or 6 times. Then they begin to walk right. So the stepping is not too long nor too short. It's about the length of the foot, but in between there's some space. legs or the body movements. But as long as the mindfulness is not strong or not focused, meditators could not pay attention well to the movements of the foot. Or as you mindful and not left, the mind is conscious of other things. For example, as I'm mindful of the movements of the right foot, sometimes I do conscious a little bit of pressing of the other foot and so on. Meditators, just be patient. It takes time to develop focused mindfulness. So mindfulness here sometimes mindfulness actually means paying full attention to one object or one phenomenon at each moment. Full attention. But as long as meditators have not yet developed constant and continuous mindfulness for a period of time, and concentration is not deep enough, then it's not possible to pay full attention to one object. If meditators can pay full attention to one object, this is known as concentration in mindfulness meditation. And that full attention means meditators realize every object is arising and passing away very instantly. And if the mindfulness is getting sharper, the mindfulness is also arising and passing away together with the object. So this full attention. But it takes time to develop such full attention. So when meditators walk slowly, mindfully, they should not force themselves to slow down. Although slow down is important, but we do not force ourselves to slow down too much. What we emphasize here is to train ourselves to slow down. You are able to train yourself to slow down gradually. It becomes a habit in your practice, in your retreats. It's because you force yourself to slow down too much. Then you need to put a lot of intentional effort to control your movements. When you put too much of intentional effort to control your movements, you may not be able to mindful the movements of foot well. Because when you want to slow down, definitely your mind has to make some effort to control the movements in order to slow down. So in this meditation, we need to slow down for the purpose of cultivation or development of mindfulness. But we do not force ourselves to slow down too much. We train ourselves to slow down gradually. So whenever you reach the end of walking path, you should not turn immediately. You should mindful that you are standing and not standing, at least 5 times or 6 times. But you should not do any counting. We do not do any counting in the practice of mindfulness. So mindful standing, then you need to turn back slowly, turning. So if you could not turn slowly, you may come to realize the body is turning, the legs also moving, turning at the same time. We can't mindful of 2 process of movements. So sometimes we suggest to meditators they might mindful of the turning movement bodies and note it as turning. You realize there's turning, you note turning, or turning, standing. Be mindful and note the postures at least 5 times or between 5 to 10 times. Then meditators begin to walk again, right. Perceiving these movements, then meditators note it as right. Perceiving this movement of left, note it as left. So they should not make the noting, then only begin to move. Sometimes some meditators take the noting as a command. Before the foot is moving, they order the foot right, then they only start to walk. But this is not the way of mindfulness. There must be object arising or happening. Then there's arising of attention of mind. So attention mind here means awareness. So right, left. While mindful of the movements, if meditators realize they're thinking, they should stop immediately and mindful not thinking. When thinking has disappeared, move again, right, left. So sometimes the noting is not really precise at the beginning. The most important is mindfulness or awareness is precise at the beginning of the process. So sometimes meditators perceive the movement of right foot, then in the middle process they know it's right, that's acceptable. Only when they keep on practicing, then they can take note of the object faster and faster. So right, slowly, or left, standing. Be mindful of standing at least 5 times or between 5 to 10 times. Then meditators mindful of turning movement body, turning, or turning, or turning, or turning, standing. Be mindful not standing, between 5 to 10 times. Then begin to walk again. So on the first day of the retreats, or even the second day, meditators may mindful of the movements of the foot left and right about 15 to 20 minutes. But you do not have to look at the clock or the watch. You rely on your inner clock. Then in the remaining time, you might mindful lifting, pushing, dropping. For those meditators who have experienced in meditation, they might mindful note lifting, droppings. If they are getting used to it, they may continue to note lifting, dropping, or they can skip lifting, dropping. It's because a step means that your foot must move forward to become a step. If you lift up and drop down, it seems like not so natural. And sometimes some meditators misunderstood about lifting, dropping, because sometimes the teacher did not give any demonstrations. It happened in other retreats. When the meditators are instructed to note lifting, dropping, so they could not understand well, so they stand at one place and keep on noting lifting, dropping. So it was confused because there was no demonstration. So that's why some teachers say that meditators might skip this step lifting, droppings. So you may mindful of left, right for about 15 to 20 minutes. Then you mindful of 3 phases of steps. In other words, 3 process movements. As long as we slow down our movements, then we come to realize we need to lift up the foot. So there's a lifting process. And put it down. So lifting or pushing and dropping. You do not lift up your foot too high, or we do not purposely create a clearer process. Sometimes meditators think that if you lift the foot higher, then they can perceive the movement clearer. It's not really correct to say that. We do not purposely create a clearer movements. What should be done is to practice in order to cultivate a stronger mindfulness, a clearer mindfulness. So meditators lifting, or then no, it's lifting,
perceive there's a pushing, then no pushing, then there's a dropping. So the stepping should not be too long. If the stepping is too long, most likely the heel you touch the floor first. So that's why the stepping should not be too long nor too short. Lifting or pushing slowly and dropping. So when meditators mindful of one or process movements, if they realize there's thinking, they should stop immediately. For example, as you're mindful of pushing, you realize that you're thinking, you may stop and not thinking. But you cannot stand on one leg well, you may put down the other legs. But as you putting down the other legs, you should mindful of the thinking mind. It's because be mindful and note the thinking mind is more important to note the movements of putting down. Only when you can mindful of your mental states precisely, very instantly, then you can come to realize more progress in your meditation. You can mindful of the physical phenomena well, yet you could not see your mental state well, then you can't make more progress. So meditation is mental training. Eventually, you must be able to perceive or mindful of your mind sharply, very instantly. So lifting, pushing, dropping, and so on. And during walking meditation, meditators have to practice restraints, especially the eyes, not to look here and there. And they should practice what called indifference, indifference to the sound and the noise of the environments. Sometimes you may hear some sound, noise. As long as the sound or the noise is not distracting your mindfulness, you may not have to take note of it. What should be mindful? What should be mindful is the object that's internal, not external. In meditation, mindfulness meditation, we do not mindful of the external object. We always mindful of internal. It's because we want to gain direct experience. When you realize the object arising in your mind body is impermanent, is subject to arising and passing away, then you can infer from your personal experience that the object that are external are also not permanent. So what we want to gain is personal experiential knowledge or direct experiential knowledge. So this experience you have to gain through your own practice. You do not have to find out the experience from the book, or some meditators say they Google for the experience of meditation. You don't have to Google any experience. So this is important. Another thing, meditation is something really known as DIY. You have to do it yourself. I can't do it for you, or even the Buddha can't do it for you. The Buddha said, Tathagata only show the way. You yourself have to put forth effort. So be mindful of lifting, pushing, droppings, at least for 1 or 2 days. Then for those yogi, especially experienced yogis, if they are able to walk slower, then they may increase the object to 5 objects and so on. So 5 objects are lifting, pushing, dropping, touching, pressing. But it's better to mindful left, right, lifting, pushing, dropping, at least for 1 or 2 days. Let's say on the 3rd day of retreats, you think that you can walk slower, then you may mindful left, right for about 15 minutes. Lifting, pushing, dropping for about 25 minutes or 30 minutes. Then you may mindful 5 objects, for example, lifting, or pushing, dropping, touching, or pressing, or lifting, pushing, dropping, touching, pressing, and so on. So these are the 5 objects. Actually, in fact, there are more objects than these 5 objects. But only when you are able to go for longer retreats, then the teachers may instruct you to walk slower and slower and to increase the mental noting gradually so that you can perceive the movements in more details. So at the end, walking meditation is important to walk to the place of sitting slowly, mindfully. It's because constant and continuous mindfulness is an important factor to make progress. So you should walk slowly, mindfully. You walk unmindfully, then you lost all your mindfulness. So meditators who walk slowly, mindfully. For example, at the end walking meditation, you are mindful of lifting, pushing, dropping. You should try to maintain the same steps, lifting or pushing, dropping, lifting, pushing, dropping, and so on. So sit down slowly. First, be mindful of the standing postures, standing, standing, standing. Be mindful, note it about 5 to 10 times. When you want to unlock your hand, do it slowly, aware the movements, or sometimes you can do a general noting, moving, then sitting down or lowering. So as you sit down, you should perceive the movements of sitting down, not the tightening of muscle or the weight of the body. You should try to perceive the movement of sitting down slowly, kneel down slowly, and so on. When there's a touching, be mindful of touching, touching. If you wish to pay homage to Buddha, you also do it slowly. Be mindful of folding the palm, lift up the hand one by one, and so on. Lifting, lifting. When it's a touching, always touching, lifting, lifting, bowing, 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 and so on. So this is mindful meditation. You have to mindful of whatever movements or actions that you are doing at that moment. The purpose of mindfulness is to realize the true nature of the movements, and also we want to protect the mind from the attack of defilements. So this is walking meditation. So
besides practicing walking and sitting meditation, you also need to practice mindfulness in daily activities. In other words, you need to develop mindfulness all the time, as long as you are awake. So when you're walking from one place to another place, you should mindful left, right. So walking slowly whenever it's possible. Whenever you're eating your breakfast or lunch, you should mindful of chewing, tasting, and so on. So mindfulness of daily activities is very important. Only when you develop more and more constant and continuous mindfulness, then you can expect deeper concentration and greater experience. So as long as we are awake, we can develop mindfulness. Because mindfulness means the attention of mind. But our attention of the mind could be quite superficial, sometimes not stable. The mind or the attention of mind could be jumping here and there. And there's a simile about the monkey mind. I believe you have heard about this similar monkey mind. Actually, monkey mind here in the scriptures and as well as the commentaries explain that the mind, like the monkey, actually it does not mean that the mind is restless. It means that the mind is busy with many sense objects and so on. So I shall explain it later in other talk. So when we say monkey mind, it doesn't mean that the mind is very restless, but the mind could not stay with one object, jumping here and there. So mindfulness of daily activity is important. You take interest in it. You need to slow down whenever possible. So whenever we practice mindfulness meditation intensively, in any place or any retreats, sometimes you have to slow down. Sometimes you can't slow down. Then you have to learn to practice general mindfulness. For example, when you line up to take your dishes, you may not have to slow down. Then you learn to practice general mindfulness, aware of scooping and so on. But whenever you are able to slow down, for example, one of the good examples usually given by the teachers in the retreats is when you do pay homage to Buddha at the beginning of sitting meditation, or in the early morning when you want to pay homage to the Buddha, you need to do slowly, because you are paying homage in your place. This place is your own place. You can take your own time to do it slowly, so that you can develop mindfulness in order to realize the various process and movements in more details. So this is mindfulness meditation. So it's important that meditators should practice mindfulness meditation based on his own experience. I shall quote. Some of you might have read the book, The Hearts of Buddhist Meditation by Venerable Yanapurika Thera. In the chapters on the chapter about the Satipatthana meditation, I shall quote. It is a fundamental principle of the Satipatthana method that the disciple should take his very first step on the firm ground of his own experience. He should learn to see things as they are, and he should see them for himself. He should not be influenced by others, giving him suggestions or hints about what he may see or is expected to see. Unquote. So sometimes meditators ask the teacher or ask the experienced meditators what experience, what to see. But if the experienced meditators explain to them what to see and so on, this is in fact against the spirits of Vipassana meditation, because the practice of Vipassana meditation is a process of self-discovery of the Dharma or the truth. So you must have this right understanding that you want to discover the truth, the teaching of Buddha or Dharma by yourself. You want to rely or copy the experience of other meditators. You may not get the real experience or genuine experience. So this is a brief the instructions on the practice of sitting meditation, walking meditation, and mindfulness of daily activities. So I wish all meditators always be heedful. Be heedful means be mindful, so that you can realize the Dharma. Dharma here means your own mind and bodily processes, and could understand your own mind, uprooting all defilements, and attain ultimate purity of the mind through this Satipatthana meditation as soon as possible.